Thanks, Dieter. Good afternoon, folks. I am nervous as all get out, but I'm going to try and get through this, and hopefully I don't throw up on anybody or make this really, really overly entertaining. I have titled this Embracing Disruption. There's definitely been a bit of a theme that I've picked up on over the past, although it's only been a couple of days, today, yesterday. It already feels like I've been here for about a week or so. I'm just really, really fired up and resonating, vibrating even with excitement, just to realize, confirmation bias aside, that like we're onto something. I've been selfishly, in addition to working for Encana as their sort of identity architect, identity specialist, I've also been, I'm the co-founder of one of our, or I guess our only local identity user group. Thanks again in large part to the Radiant Logic and the fine folks there. And it started off as a very informal, unofficial kind of, this sucks, everything's changed, we don't have a budget, we can't do this, over beers and other substances, and that quickly evolved into others saying, you're right, this sucks, we do have to get better at this, we have to come together and figure out those sort of commonalities, the common threads, and the common threads and threats, if you will, became things like cloud, mobile. Those were the themes that kept recurring over and over again. And our inability to respond appropriately to those themes that were, and those threats that were confronting our organization and our organizational ability through lack of agility and entropy. So with that, business agility enabled through identity. Or, honestly, better living through modern identity. So this, the slide here that I ripped straight from Google Images, God bless them, basically illustrates and underscores that Encana, being an oil and gas producer, a large oil and gas producer in Canada, headquarters in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Yes, we were able to make it across the border without too many issues this time around. It was exciting nonetheless, always exciting. This really highlights that within our industry vertical in particular, there's been not just a gap, but a real drought in innovation over the last little while. 2016 or so and change, that radically started to change, certainly for our organization. A lot of sort of industrial players that operate in the same sort of space are undergoing rapid transformation and a rapid pivot towards being much more data-driven, as I'll get into shortly. So our primary business drivers, and before I speak to the slide, I will sort of highlight that this is not going to be sort of an in-the-weeds discussion, as the previous gentleman, Kevin. This is really kind of talking about our story and our journey, and hopefully you'll sort of find yourself somewhere in sort of that spectrum, and there will be enough sort of, oh yeah, me too, maybe not that me too, but a different me too. I'm sorry, too soon. I know, I'm sorry. I'm Canadian, so I'll apologize for everything up front. So from the standpoint of how we got to where we are, of course, we're talking primarily price volatility. We went from the days, the glory days, if you will, as many in my industry would call it, where price was no object. I mean, it was, literally, maybe not quite hookers and blow before every meeting kind of thing, but there was a lot of there was a lot of excess, and nobody questioned the acquisition of any sort of technology or application or platform, resulting in just a massive decontainment of application pools and application support. So we had the bills to show for all of that sort of excess, and we were just sort of drunken on our own, woo, $120 barrel of oil, yeah, world instability, bring it on. That cratered in 2012, of course, and around that time, subsequently, of course, our organization reflected that in the form of, like many of our peers, going through rounds of successive layoffs, cutting to the bone. So we wanted to get, the mandate was to get lean and mean. So the stated business objective of significantly increasing cash flow while maintaining current staff levels and or reducing staff levels, again, where and when it made sense, that's an operational reality that we're living with today. Likewise, again, as I sort of briefly alluded to before, we're pushing for an expanding adoption of a data-driven, technology-focused. So again, if you refer to the previous point, that stated business objective of increased cash flow, margins being what they are and being as volatile as they are, maintaining current or slightly reduced staff levels, that to me equated to an outcome of more investment in automation through technology investment. So, and of course, in the midst of that, of course, we have our user base, our constituents, and the consumers of our services that we've provided for years to negligible effect, as you'll see in a minute, who are demanding more and more of that kind of consumer. I just want it. I just want it to work. Why can't this work? Why, IT, do you make this so hard? Why do you say no every single time I come to you with a question? So, and then of course the real, for us, the crux of the matter was the reality of flat or reduced budgets. So those of you who may be familiar with the Maytag repairman, who basically sort of sits around and waits for the call, nobody ever calls, he's lonely, he's sort of doing things he probably shouldn't be doing. That was really our world. So identity and access management, in our case, had lost support people and purpose over time. That concept of entropy, where we had, in the days of excess, bought literally one of everything, and so we had many versions of different Oracle identity managers. Our primary identity and access management provisioning service was the Big Red N, Novell, top of its class for its day, but quickly outstripped its usefulness within 7 to 8 years or so. But once again, we overbuilt things, we over-engineered because we could, and the business, there was a very hard distinction between, and we were siloed from the business in a very unhealthy way. And we could never actually get in front of them to say, what are your actual requirements? What problems are we trying to solve on your behalf? Go away, you're wasting my time, just build the damn thing. Okay, fair enough. So we overbuilt everything. The result over time, of course, was what we called accidental architecture that has both duplication and capabilities, lots of duplication and capabilities, as well as fundamental gaps in functionality, and is also challenging to support operationally. With the correction that happened, of course, one of our IT sort of corporate services responses was to outsource, offshore, go low cost. So we went from premium in-house, cream of the crop talent to not outsourced, offshore, and that transition directly and demonstrably impacted levels of service. So the business went from tolerating IT to loathing IT, and to doing everything and anything they could to work around us. So, and then again, those gaps and inconsistencies, increase support costs, and they create information security risk. And I ripped this straight from Radiant Logic, so props to them, and thanks for that. This literally illustrates where we were, and again, I'm sure a lot of organizations who are brick and mortar, or were brick and mortar, can definitely identify with this. So there's been this exponential and extra-dimensional explosion of data and access. Everything used to happen within the confines of the firewall, and when everything was just like, us four, no more. We were happy because we were ignorant. There was sort of an ignorance is bliss aspect to it. Of course, the reality, of course, is that around 2008, 2009, 2010, definitely, that was no longer our reality. However, our old world was not built to accommodate for the new use cases that were cropping up with wild abandon. So fast forward to where we are today. Around 2016, let me take a bit of a step back. So around 2014, we became what Microsoft referred to as a lighthouse customer. Gave us the opportunity to participate in in participating with Microsoft with their Office 365, their Azure, and rather than kind of selecting an individual workload or maybe a couple of workloads, we're like, screw it, let's do it all. So, and again, we is the royal we in that sense, of course. So we inherited the decision to, as the implementers and the practitioners, to do it all, consume all O365 services. We're just going to go full headlong into the cloud. So here we go. So fast forward now to today, we've lived the dream, if you will, of that reality, and we've taken a few steps back going, whew, wow, that was different. Maybe we need to take another kind of step back and say, how do we sort of uplift our identity practices so that we can support that sort of desired risk portfolio, or profile, sorry. So in end of 2016, we decided as an organization to fund an identity and access management program, to build a strategy, a roadmap, sort of a 3 to 5 year roadmap, and to basically try and do it, maybe not right, but certainly better than what we had done in the past. So the Identity and Access Management Program goals over the duration of the 3 or so years were and largely are, with a couple of caveats that I'll get into, but to improve responsiveness to business requirements. That was just fundamental, a no-brainer. But again, from IT's perspective, a very, very different day insofar as we were trying to be very intentional about building towards that capability. I know it sounds, maybe to some, it's like, duh, but simplify gaining and maintaining access. One of the gentlemen spoke yesterday, the ex-Carbon Black dude, and what I really appreciated with what he was saying, and I really, like, again, confirmation bias aside, I really appreciated the sense that if you can rapidly gain the access, then the business isn't quite as intolerant to losing access temporarily in order to sort of achieve that desired risk profile. We wanted to abstract identity sources from consuming apps and systems. Now, we were also sort of dovetailing and really riding the coattails of an overarching data abstraction, data virtualization effort. Because again, we were pivoting hard towards being data-driven, data first, analytics, cloud, mobile, social, boom, 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 blockchain, no, not blockchain. But those are enough buzzwords to get by for now. But what it really meant for us was that we were able to say, right, we want to actually participate in this grand re-envisioning of how we deliver IT services at Encana, how we handle, we wanted to build a data lake. They were like, right, well, they're building a data lake, we're going to build an identity data lake. And as much as it galls me to say it, and it makes me throw up a little in my mouth a little bit, we just went down that path and sold it as such. So we also needed badly to simplify the environment, right size. Again, the days of excess were gone. We needed to bring everything under a much simpler, more maintainable, more robust architecture. And then directionally, of course, we're trying to seize the opportunities where and when they present themselves to increase and introduce automation to support the drive, to enable more of a self-serve culture. I could get into that if there's time, but that's been a little bit mixed results for sure. But that's definitely a direction and something that we're aspiring to. And then, last but not least, by any stretch, we wanted to support and improve security posture relative to these new, these new endpoints, cloud, mobile, how and where and why they're being consumed, as well as again our user base was changing dramatically. We needed to evolve and modernize our legacy identity practices. A very trivial thing on many levels that I harped on about was we're no longer just legacy directory. I sort of snuck into identity via sort of an infrastructure IT channel. And so directory services, Novell, I mean, I cut my teeth on Sun, cut my teeth on LDAP. Around 2012, 2013, of course, mine was blown. It was one of those kind of moments. When I came across something from Ian Glazer, of course, who talked about killing identity management to save identity management. And I'm like, right, yeah, that's it. He totally gets it. Once again, confirmation bias aside, when do we get our chance? Turns out our time is now. So we also wanted to make sure, and again, this sounds like a no-brainer, but I appreciate that we're in a very proprietary legacy, some would say, my manager Paul would like to say vintage, industry where we literally have meters that if you ping them, they'll fall over. They'll disappear from the network for a while. So, I mean, this is far from future state or future-facing technology, with a number of exceptions that are rapidly changing, of course. We also wanted to seek out and partner with business-facing champions and advocates. And instead of punishing shadow IT, instead of punishing the good business people who actually wanted just to get their job done, get home, we actually wanted to embrace them, reward their drive, and bring them in from the shadows to offer up the chance for choice, self-admin, and kind of get out of the business of just saying no as our go-to. We also wanted to orient our solutions in light of hybrid identity reality, i.e. we are going to be in this hybrid world, this hybrid reality of on-prem, off-prem, cloud, and the mix therein for the foreseeable future. And of course that drives up some other operational costs and whatnot, unless we took a bit of a different approach, which I'll get into shortly. And once again, the identity data lake, we're there, baby. So we really wanted to build connected platforms. So transitioning from programs to platforms. And again, like the way I sort of saw it, I'm like, whatever, this is marketing BS. But there's something actually there, right? And I think that there's sort of that we're all kind of resonating. We're recognizing that there is a transition underway. The platforms, it's an important distinction to draw, going from programs to platforms to products even, right? So the language matters. That's why I don't get necessarily to get in front of people to speak very often, because language matters. And so we really wanted to sort of position ourselves as, we're the connective tissue. We hold it all together. All things go through us, and we're in all things. I mean, it's like, woo, one of those moments, right? So after people got past the initial, there's definitely been sort of a recognition that, once again, identity, security, they matter. And they matter quite significantly. So this is talking about kind of the separate but connected worlds that we're transitioning from. So in identity, of course, our world of days past, far too many siloed, marginally connected, and when I say connected, they're really connected through manual human efforts. We really did not have a cohesive story in any semblance of the word. Integrations were far too many, hundreds of integrations, to the point where and no sort of catalog or inventory of the integration. So the business would say, I don't know what the hell's out there, so I'm just going to spin up my own. And again, lack of governance and just get the job done. So we just had integration sprawl, identity sprawl, data sprawl. And of course, we're talking about business data, of course. Come on. Oh, okay. So our strategic objective is to provide, as a number of us have been saying for the past couple of days, the right information from source to consumer. Support modern access protocols and web services. Again, as my peer said, LDAP for all intents and purposes. We have been talking to a couple of the developers, and they're like, "What the hell is LDAP?" I mean, it's literally almost to that point. So I'm like, "All right, okay, we get it." We also wanted to be very intentional about reducing the number of integrations and the need for those kinds of integrations, especially from the standpoint of, and again, this was very important directionally, organizationally, stop copying data. That was the #1 mandate, stop copying data. We also wanted to take advantage of, again, that directional organizational support to increase overall agility via abstraction. If this works, here we go. And so this really is pretty high level, and I had to be a little bit kind of judicious as far as how much information I was able to share, of course, but this really just highlights the fact that what we're building for the sort of the connected platform product of now/tomorrow. I'm not sure how much time I have. A couple of minutes? Is that right? It talks about identity data being treated as data first and foremost, and that was also a mindset shift that a number of other folks in IT, in information management, had to sort of wrap their minds around, is that we can play too. And we have a story here, there's some value here that we can add to the equation. You don't have to bake in your own authorization context engine. Come to us, right? We can offer that up. So breaking down those walls, that's really directionally, again, where we're trying to take this, to support our go-forward position. And this really just becomes, at the end of the day, sort of a view of the necessary identity data. So we're able to build that, finally, able to build that sort of unified, global, ratified, agreed upon, gold master user profile. End of story. That's just for staff. We're also seeing this as our go-forward strategic platform from the standpoint of things. So, of course, oil and gas. Smart sensors are starting to creep their way into the organization, of course. We have a number of POCs that are underway right now, and they're already starting to talk to some folks about security and what do we do about this and how do we avoid being hacked. And we're saying, well, right, we actually will have the ability for the first time to present views of the data that you need so that you can actually ingest the appropriate information to make those kinds of just-in-time contextual decisions. It's very exciting. I know to a number of folks it sounds, again, yeah, what else you got, right? But for us, this is the new world. And again, what we also wanted to do along with this sounds like a no-brainer, but we actually wanted to institute and practice data governance, including identity data governance, to get agreement on the fact that this data matters, this data doesn't matter quite as much. You own and master this data. We don't. We don't want to own anything. We just want to, and that was one of our mistakes in the past that really greatly inhibited our ability to be agile, was that we had to, by virtue of the meta directory, we had to own everything. And that, along with that, of course, that came with the encumbrance of the operational support, all the complexity and the fragility of the environment. We wanted to go from fragility to agility. Boom, there's a slogan. And again, first and foremost, ourselves, our information management team, stop copying data. So in the structured data world, unstructured data world of information management, they are also rapidly trying to figure out their strategy to onboard some sort of a data virtualization platform going forward. And again, we're mutually beneficial. We have a really tight reciprocal relationship with them. And we're able to feed into and consume from all the good stuff that they're able to do with data quality, for example, and reporting and whatnot. So the whole concept of mastering data, MDM, different MDM, not that MDM, different MDM, is really, we're trying to, again, sort of work lockstep and barrel with, that didn't come out right. We're trying to work with the EIM team to make sure that we are adhering to the principles that the organization has now said, this is important to us, this matters, this is go forward. People data today, Well data is also in the works, but you know, again, they're cutting their teeth on people data, and we're able to sort of leverage this as kind of that inflection moment to say, here's the opportunity, budget, attention, priority, until the next, you know, tyranny of the shiny kind of pops up, and like, woo, whatever comes up next to the upper management. But we'll be ready. I mean, for the first time ever, we believe that we'll be ready. That's all I've got. Any questions?
Questions?
I can't see anything.
Can you talk a little more about your authorization needs and what solutions you used?
Yeah. And again, I didn't really get into the specifics necessarily. I was talking in generalities because now we're sort of honing in on what that looks like. But again, we are an Azure customer. We're transitioning from multiple Active Directory for us, from coarse-grained authorization to much more, you know, claims-based, data-fed, fine-grained authorization is really what we have in mind. We need to keep in mind that the application pool and the application needs are radically changing as well. Mobile is changing everything, right? So we have to be able to offer up that sort of scrubbed version of proper data for consumption. Thank you.
Any other questions? Great. If not, thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no worries. With without over here.
Oh, hey.
It's your conscience.
What? God? Go to Africa.
With in a lot of the other, like especially big ONG clients that I talk to, you know, the transition, you know, really has become, you know, not just doing, you know, IT and working in the business land and all that, but, you know, integrating with, you know, the operational side of the house as well. And
yes.
so you mentioned, you know, the, you know, prevalence of smart meters and stuff like that. So I have to assume that's become a concern for you guys as well. How big is OT as a focus for your group?
That is a great question. We should drink scotch and get into it.
Sold.
All right. That's a great question. So for us, it's not yet an operational reality, but it's not if, but when. And it's just barely kind of like we can see it on the horizon. It's looming.
Spookily storming over
Exactly.
the clouds.
It's like the tsunami, like the waves have gone out, and you're like just waiting for it to roll back in, right, and take you along with it. But that said, there's definitely a real concerted effort to, once again, put investment into OT. Our security folks are looking at some physical security options using OT technology, which is, freaking awesome. I mean, this is. I'm sorry to get crude here, but this is like tech porn to me. Like I'm totally digging this stuff, right? I'm so excited to be in this space. No matter how I actually found myself in this space, I sort of stuck in, is what I feel like. But this is the space to be for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.